So for phase 3 of our website project, we're going to take the website that we created in phase 2, and we're going to change a few things about it, mainly the way the navigation works. Currently, when I play this file here, we are able to jump from one page to the next by telling Flash to jump to a particular frame in the timeline, and it just jumps directly there, and the pages are visible on that frame. What I want to change it to is to have a slightly more sophisticated way to do the page transitions, and this is a after view. So I'm playing this video here, and if I click on a button, for one thing, I have sound effects now that give me a little pop sounds when I move over the button. When I click on it, it gives me a little sound effect, and it smoothly transitions the contents pages from one page to another by shifting everything horizontally from the starting point to the end point, and it comes to a nice smooth stop. So it's a very smooth movement, and I'm not sure that this will come through in the recording that I'm making, but it looks quite nice in the real world playback here. So we add sound, and we add this new navigation system to animate the page transitions horizontally. So let's switch back to our starting point for our phase 2, well, the end point of our phase 2, the starting point of our phase 3 for the project, and add sounds to these navigation buttons first. So in order to do that, I'm going to edit the nav button symbol itself. I double click on it to open up the edit view for this button symbol by itself. I have several states. For over, this is what the button looks like, a thin bar. The down state, when I press the mouse button, it shows a bigger rectangle, and the hit area is the area that makes the button come alive and become interactive. This is also the same shape. In order to add sound to this button, I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to call it sound or sounds. Doesn't really matter what you call it, but give it a name that makes sense. Here I can add keyframes for each one of the states, and I can add sound files to this frame or this state. So I'm going to right click and insert a keyframe, and now that I've created this, I can drag a sound file from my library onto the stage. Of course, I don't have a sound file yet, so let me switch over to Firefox and navigate to a website called flashkit.com. On this website you will find a lot of useful resources for Flash development. The one I'm interested in is the sound effects one here. So I'm going to navigate to interfaces to get interface related sounds, and the one category here I'm interested in is, for example, pops. And to get a variety of things, let me just play a few of these here. Like so. And you can just browse through here and pick the one that you like. To download this MP3 file or the sound as an MP3 file, click on the download button. On this page here you can select the MP3, which loads the file by itself onto a page. I am using Firefox to do this, so now I can see here that this is playing the MP3 file by itself, and I can download this MP3 file by going to File, Save Page As. This will open the Save File, the File Save dialog, and I'm saving files to a Sounds subfolder that I've created inside the folder where my .fla file exists. So This is inside my project website design. There's a sounds subfolder, and this is where I would be saving the MP3 files. I've already saved some files, so I'm not going to save these again. I'm using the ones that I saved earlier. So I'm canceling here, but you would be saving your files, of course. So I'm switching back to Flash, and I need to import these MP3 files to my library. So I go to File, Import, to the library, and if it does not open up in the right folder, like here, navigate to the folder that contains your sounds, and here I can select both of these sounds and import them to my library. So now that I have them in my library, I can again select my over state on the sounds layer, and now I want to drag this pop sound from the library onto my stage. That will activate that sound when I move my mouse over the active area. In the properties for this sound, I have to make sure that the sync is set to the event, so that the sound starts playing the moment my mouse, for example, enters the active area of the button, or in the event of my clicking the button of the mouse down. So for the down state, I am adding a keyframe, and I'm also dragging this other sound file, the spray sound, it's like a spray can sound snippet, to add it to the down state of my button. Now both of these sounds should actually be active as of right now. Since I'm editing the symbol, all of the instances that I use on my home page will automatically have this behavior. So if I play my movie right now by pressing Command Return on the Mac, I should have sound effects. If I press down, it gives me the sound effects, the little ticks when I move over, and the longer spray sound when I press the button down. So this is the effect, and it automatically takes effect on all of the buttons because I added the sound effects to the symbol for the buttons. So this takes care of our sounds that we needed to add to the buttons, and next up is redoing the navigation. So let me show you real quick what we're aiming for. If I go to the version that is already done and I'm viewing all of it, you can see that I have a very wide symbol here that in turn contains each one of my pages, and later on when we move from page to page, I'm going to simulate it here by moving this entire symbol horizontally. So when we move to the Power page, it just gets scooted over back to the home page, things like that. So we're moving this entire wide symbol horizontally to navigate from one page to another. I'm going to press Command Z to undo this. So in order to create this, I have to create symbols that I can package each individual page into. Before I package these symbols up, I want to add a few graphic elements to each one of the pages because currently, for example, the home page only contains the word home. So I want to add a few graphic elements that I've prepared in Photoshop. And for example, in Photoshop, I have prepared like this image of a paint can pouring out paint. It's on a transparent background, and I'm going to save this as PNG file that have transparency, and then I'm going to insert those PNG files into my Flash design. So I've already prepared all the images. I need to import those images into my library before I can use them. So I'm importing by going to File, Import. to the library, and I want to navigate to my folder that contains all of these images. And there's a handful of them. For example, this camera, this paint kit, the paint can pouring out the paint, a projector screen, and sort of a hand holding a pencil. So all 5 of these images I want to import into my library. Let me take a second to do this here. What Photoshop or what Flash does, it loads all of these PNG files into your library, and it also creates symbols automatically for you. For example, symbol 9, if I double click on this, I can see that this is my paint can. So I'm going to name these so that I can tell what is what. I'm going to pause for a moment to name all of them. So I've renamed all of my symbols so that I can tell which one is which without having to double click on them to see what's going on behind the symbol here. So moving back to my scene 1, and I want to add, for example, the paint can to this home page layout here. So I drag my paint can symbol to my stage and create an instance of it. Of course, I have to have the frame selected where this symbol is going to go. Dragging it over will create it here. It's bigger than I want it to be, so I'm using my free transform tool and holding down the shift key, dragging a corner to have this position just so. It's in front of the home word, so in order to get it behind the home word, I need to do one intermediate step. I have to take my, everything that the home word consists of and turn it also into a symbol so that I can stack things. So this is my S home symbol. Simply converts the graphic shapes that I had here before into a symbol, adds the symbol to my library, and also converts it in place. So now when I drag my paint can, it actually is behind the element that says home. I'm going to view my background so I can size this paint can so it fits on here just so without reaching into the navigation bar. So this is my first graphic element, and I'm going to add additional graphic elements to the other pages, and I'm going to pause for a moment to do that. So I've added these graphic elements to the home page, to my about page, the little paint kit, on my contact page, the little hand that appears to be writing the word contact, and the last one I'm going to do separately here. So on this page I want to add, with this frame selected and the layer selected, I want to have the camera, and I have to size it down again, position it just so. I'm going to activate my background to make sure I size it so it does not interfere with the navigation. Scoot it over just a little bit. And also I need to make sure I select this frame again and then drag my screen onto this frame as well, holding down the shift key to size it and position it just so. And I want to have an area to display videos later on and a little open space on the sides to put thumbnails for the different videos that I want to load. So this is reasonable for right now, and so my whole page looks something like this here. This is my home page with the paint can, paint kit, the handwriting, and my 2 elements to show still images in this viewfinder screen, and later on to have videos playing on this little projection screen. So this looks reasonable now. My next step is to package each one of these individual pages into a symbol. In order to do that, I'm going to select the frame where this page exists on and view only the elements that are on this page here. So by default, Flash will select everything that's on here, and I can go to modify and convert this to a symbol. And I need to name it, and the name scheme that I pick for creating symbols starts with a lowercase s, and then I call it home page with capitalized H and P. So it creates the home page symbol here, and it also converts whatever I have on this frame to an instance of this symbol. So I do the same thing for the others as well. I select the frame that contains everything of the About page, nothing else, modify, convert to symbol. This is my S About page. Okay, and next up is the contact page. Everything is selected that is on this frame, on this layer. Modify, convert to symbol, S contact page. And last candidate is the portfolio page. Select everything that's on here, convert to symbol, S portfolio page. So now I've created all of my individual page symbols. They now exist in my library and also on my layers that define the individual pages. Since I'm changing my navigation all around, I actually am going to hide everything except for, or to hide this pages folder that contains all of my current pages, because I'm redoing all of that. So in fact I don't need it at all, so I'm going to select it and delete it. And I'm going to delete everything that's inside as well, because I'm recreating the navigation using a new scheme. I also no longer need all of these individual frames here that you see. I'm going to select all of them by clicking. Right? You click outside first, then you click and drag over this range of all these frames, because we will no longer need them, because in the upcoming navigation we're not jumping from frame to frame, we are staying on frame 1 for everything. So I select all these frames, right click, and I can remove these frames, and that's okay. Clears things up, cleans things up nicely here. What I also want to do is do a little bit of cleanup over here in my library, because there's a lot of stuff going on. I want to create a few folders. For example, my page symbols I want to put them into a separate folder. So the S About page goes in here, the S Contact page goes in here, S Home page, and the S Portfolio page. A new folder for my bitmaps, images. These are all the PNG files. You can select all of them by holding down the Option key to select, or the Command key on the Mac to select them individually, all at the same time, and then click and drag them over the bitmaps to move them into this folder. And last I have my page symbols, or these are my image symbols. Just to make things a little bit easier to figure out later on. So I select all of my symbols that I created earlier of the images, including the home. That was just a word, but I just want to clean up this here that goes into the image symbols. Now this looks a lot better already. One more for sounds, and I can drag my MP3 files into the sounds folder. Just keep this nice and tidy and organized here. And so now I'm ready to create my brand new widescreen symbol that will then in turn contain all of the individual page symbols. So to prepare for that, I'm going to create a new layer right above the background and call this my pan screen layer, or just pan screen. Oops, I have to double click on it. Pan screen. So this is just the name of my layer. There's nothing on it as of right now. I need to actually create a brand new symbol from scratch that will hold all of these individual other page symbols. So to do that, I go to Insert, New Symbol, and this will allow me to name a new symbol. This is going to be my S pan screen symbol. So S for the indicating that it is a symbol, and it gives me a brand new, totally blank symbol that I can put things inside. The things that I want to put inside are my individual page symbols. So I drag my home page symbol onto this stage to see it like this here, and then I'm going to move over a little bit, and I take my About page and drag it onto the stage. And I want it to be somewhat horizontally aligned or vertically aligned, and then scoot it over quite a bit to have a fair bit of room between the home and the About page. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I want to take the contact page next, drag it onto the stage, move it over. It will automatically expand this canvas area, so I leave quite a bit of room between these individual pages, and they're automatically want to be somewhat aligned here, so I can make them align at the bottom, perhaps like so. And the last element here that I need to put on here, the last symbol, is my portfolio page, and I move it way over here, and as I move it, it will simply create more space for me. And again, I have a fair bit amount of space between these individual pages. So now this is my pan screen symbol that I will move in its entirety left and right. Each of these pages actually needs to have an instance name for later on. So this is my I portfolio page, the instance of the portfolio page inside the symbol. This here is my I contact page. That didn't come out right. I contact page. Whoops. This here is my I about page. I about page. All these names are case sensitive, so you have to make sure you pick a theme and stick with it. My theme is starting with a lowercase I, and then each new word starts with a capital letter. And so this is my I home page. And the A just always wants to be capitalized. It shouldn't. Alright, so this is my instance names for each one of these symbols that are inside my pan screens symbol. That pan screen symbols does not yet exist on my stage, so I'm selecting the first frame of my pan screen layer. I'm taking my S pan screen symbol, dragging it onto my stage. I'm going to have to zoom out a little bit to see what's going on. So this is my visible background here in the center, and this is my very wide pan screens symbol that in a few moments I will start to navigate using this screen or this symbol by moving it horizontally to transition from one page to another, just like I'm simulating here by dragging the symbol horizontally to the left and right. So this is my symbol that will allow me to implement the navigation. This symbol, now that it's on the stage, also needs to have an instance name, and I call it iPan screen. So the instance of my pan screen symbol. And this looks reasonable. And next up, I have to go into my action script to actually make this here work. So I select the first frame that has my action script inside, and I open up my actions panel here. So what I currently have is whenever I click on a button, it wants to go to and stop to a particular frame that we previously had labeled. I'm going to abandon this entirely by, well, commenting it out right now. 2 double slashes will comment out this line of code, and it will no longer be executed when they run the script. However, I have to do something else. Instead of the go to and stop, I want to create an animation that smoothly moves my iPan screen symbol to the right horizontal position. In order to create these tween animations, I have to first insert or load 2 library files that allow me to have access to the functions that I need to create these tweens. I am copying these from another file. I'm going to pause for a second. I'm pasting 2 lines of code from another file that I had previously prepared. What I'm doing here is I'm importing 2 library files. One of them is inside the transitions collection. I'm importing the tween collection of functions so that I can create tweens to automatically, or in real time when the Flash file is executing, I can create new tween animations. I also want to use the easing properties for the tween animation, so I have to import a second file that imports everything that has to do with the easing property of tween animations. So now that I have these 2 files, or these 2 collections of files imported, I can now add a statement into my code here to create a new tween animation. I'm pasting this line of code from another file I had prepared. And this looks a little bit complicated, so let me go through what is happening here in this line of code that I'm adding here. On the left side of the equal sign, I have a variable that will hold my tween animation so that I can later refer back to it. On the right side of the equal sign, I'm creating a new tween animation. This is what creates the tween itself. I need to tell it which instance of a symbol I want to animate. In my case, this is the iPan screens symbol. Your Flash file may have different instance names. This is the name of the symbol, the instance name of the symbol that you are animating. This is the property that we want to animate, the X property. We want to apply ease out, meaning the transition should come to a nice, smooth, gradual stop as it arrives at its final destination. Again, I want to animate the X property of my iPan screens instance. This is the X position that it needs to move to, and this is the duration that the transition should take. Though this number here, this 320 that you see here, you will have to modify this. In fact, I have to modify it now, because you should check the location or the position of your iPan screens instance on your stage, in this case when it is in the home position. So let me verify that. This is my symbol, my iPan screen symbol, and it actually does not have an S at the end. I have to change that in my action script. X position here states it's at 138.7 or 139. So the X position when it's in the proper home location, when the home page is showing on our background, is position 139. So that's what I have to select, or 139 instead of 320, 139. I also need to change the name of my instance to iPan screen. It does not have a plural S in this particular implementation. So this should actually, when I click on the home button, it should initiate a transition of the iPan screen instance horizontally to the new X position of 139. I'm going to implement two of these here so that we can jump back and forth between the two and see how it works. So the name of my tween will be About Tween in this case, since this is attached to the About button. I still move the pan screen. The X position really is the only thing I have to modify here. I'm going to check what that should be. Collapse this here. Move my symbol or my instance horizontally until the About page is in about the right position here. And the X, I read off the X position or the X data, it's 585 or 586, minus 586 actually. So I go back to my screen, minus 586, and replace this number with minus 586. So that should move the iPan screen instance horizontally to this new X position. This actually should work right now. If I try this out, let's see if I can move between. Now the position where this symbol is located at, this will always be the starting position of when you load the frame or when you load the movie. So I'm going to move this back to its starting position because I want to see the home position in this, the home page in this position when I start the movie. So Command Enter to start the movie, and I can, I'm getting a bunch of error messages here. Property About button, undefined property. We have to check this. This may not work because of those errors right now, because none of my action code is executing if I have all these errors here. So something is wrong with my property for iHome button, access of undefined property iHome button. What's up with that? Let me check this out. The problem that I have actually is that earlier I must have accidentally deleted all of my buttons that existed earlier that were overlaying my navigation words here. If I zoom in a little bit, this is the buttons, these blue frames that I should have, that somehow disappeared. I must have accidentally deleted them earlier because they do not exist in my frame 1 for my navigation buttons. Not sure how that happened, but I can copy. Well, you shouldn't delete them in the first place. I can copy the frame that contains these navigation buttons from my other saved project and insert them back here to bring them back. So I paste my frames. It's kind of at the bottom of my drop-down list. So now my frames are back. Each one of these frames hopefully will have an instance name like iHome button, iAbout button, iContact button, and iPortfolio button. So this should actually fix hopefully my action script that was trying to access or add event listeners to these buttons, and that is what the error message was about a few moments ago. So let me try this one more time to see whether my file will now execute properly. And I'm not getting any error messages. That's a good thing. And I have my buttons back, which is good. If I click on the About button, it plays the sound and it smoothly transitions my wide iPan screen symbol or instance horizontally. So I can go back and forth between these two pages here, and the animation comes to a nice smooth stop, which is good. So I'm on the right track here now that I've recreated my buttons. Not sure what happened there. So I can go in and use the same logic or the same command. I'm actually going to remove these guys since I don't need them anymore. And I want to copy this line here, Command C, and replace this one with the new one. And I'm updating the names for contact, Tween, and the position here should be not -586, it should be, let me check this out, zoom out to see all of it. If I move my contact page into position, or my contact element, horizontal scroll, this is the right X position. I read off my -1550. Go back to my action scripts. -1550. And the last one is this one here. Start out with the plain one, rename it to portfolio, Tween, and the X position for the portfolio should be, move this over into position here. Actually, I need to scoot it up a little bit. It's a little bit low, actually. So, like so. So the X position should be -2596. -2596. So your values, of course, will be different. It totally depends on how you have spread out your individual pages across this symbol. So just check out what the X position should be and then enter the value here. And the only piece we need to update is like the name so that we can later refer back to it. So this should actually work. Let's try it out. I should now be able to move. So it starts out with the portfolio page because that is where my symbol is currently located at. Later I'm going to move it back to the home page so that the movie starts on the home page. But I can move back and forth between the individual pages like so. So this is not bad right now. I want to move my symbol back into the starting position so that my home page shows, and play it one more time to verify. And this is my starting page. If I click on About, it moves my contact into place, or the About, Contact, Portfolio. Alright, so not bad. This is the functionality that we were intended to implement here. So adding sounds to the buttons, packaging each page into its own symbol, creating a brand new symbol that contains all of these individual pages, offsetting each individual page horizontally inside that symbol, and to use ActionScript and the Tween library to animate the horizontal movement and have them do a smooth transition that comes to a nice smooth stop. Everything is happening on frame 1 now. All the additional frames have been removed, and this is phase 3 of our project here. I probably would do a little bit of fine-tuning, positioning the individual pages. I don't like how it moves into the navigation area, but you can fine-tune that depending on what your page looks like. But now I'm ready for phase 4, where we will add videos to this screen here, still images to this screen, and also on the About page we will have a video playing inside this little white canvas area. But that's phase 4. This completes phase 3.